Hey guys, it's Nathan from the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel. Welcome to the next Zoom interview in the Kentucky Cycling Connection series. I'm excited to introduce my guest today, who is Gerry James from the Explore Kentucky initiative. Gerry, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For those of you who may not be familiar with Explore Kentucky initiative, I want to invite you to check out the interview that I did with Gerry last spring, and I'll include a link to that in the description for the YouTube video. For today's video, it's actually going to be a little bit different. Later in the video, we're going to highlight some resources that Explore Kentucky initiative has put together around the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, I really wanted to invite you all to join Gerry and me in a conversation around why these subjects are so important to the future of our outdoor recreation community. Gerry, before we start digging into this, is there anything you'd like to say at the start of this discussion?
I'm really happy to be having these conversations because I couldn't see these conversations, let's say new, but I couldn't see these conversations happening, even like just 4 years ago in the Kentucky outdoor community.
Yeah.
And I think it's because a lot of people are like, they consider this topic to be like political. And they're like, the outdoors is not about politics. And I talked about it and I was kind of like a pariah, sort of, like, well, not sort of. So anyways, I'm just happy to having these conversations. And I want to people keep saying like, oh, this is political. And I want to let's see what does political mean?
A lot of these issues I think are very much, it's a moral issue. The fact that it's become politicized as view, to kind of put you in the category of the other, I'm very hopeful that we'll see a movement back towards a focus on unity and trying to bridge that divide and towards American ideals. And I think hopefully we'll get into some of that in our discussion today.
So politics, state of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups or other forms of power relations between individuals, such as distribution of resources or status. The academic study of politics is referred to as political science. So there you go. That's a definition. And I think that people have to be okay with that. Some things, a lot of things are political. Right. Talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion is political because it refers to the systems that exist in our country, and those systems have to change.
Well, as part of our preparing for our discussion today, I went back and listened to my initial interview with you, and in that initial interview, we dug into 3 words which drive the work of the Explore Kentucky initiative, and those words are explore, connect, and sustain. And at the end of most interviews I do with people, I typically ask the question, is there anything I haven't asked you about already that you'd like to share with the Kentucky cycling audience or want the Kentucky cycling audience to know about? And your response was that you'd like us to think more about 3 words: diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is really a natural follow-up to that. And you challenged us to try to get people of all shapes, sizes, and colors outside and enjoying the great outdoors right here in Kentucky. So I really want to focus in on these 3 words and talk about why they're important. So starting with diversity. Gerry, do you want to start us off here and basically tell us what does diversity mean to you and why is it important?
So the mainstream, viewpoint is that diversity deals with race. It doesn't. So diversity, it's a wide range of attributes. It's class, it's sexuality, it's race, it's age, it's ability, and it's geographies as well. And there are also aspects like skill and mindset. So that's kind of the definition for me. And then the benefits of diversity is that it cultivates immersive ecosystem that serves a wide swath of people. And it's just. It's just. And then also it makes sure everyone has access, everyone's welcome. To couch it in a terms that's appropriate for the cycling community. And I'm not as much of a road cyclist. I do some mountain biking, but people might say I always hear on pages jumps and berm. Well, jumps and berms are not always, they're not accessible to someone that's beginner or intermediate or whatnot. And so we need to be, developing trail systems that can appeal to a wide swath of people. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an issue of diversity and thinking about who all are we serving via the trails. Also advertisements and stuff. when you go on to like a cycling manufacturer's, website, you don't see like folks of color. You don't see like a lot of women.
Hmm.
You don't see people that you would perceive as like non-binary and whatnot. And so that's conscious, and like, as a human, we typically gravitate towards things that we see people that look like us in. So that's diversity is important.
Yeah. I want to share my screen and bring up a couple photos if I could. So this, really sticker, if you will, kind of represents an American ideal, and we all grew up, and we're all familiar with this song. This land is your land. This land is my land. And so I think part of this notion is we have in this country some amazing ideals that set out this vision for us. In Kentucky, we have, what we refer to as a common wealth, this wealth that belongs to everybody. And, I think the outdoors is really representative of that. And so it becomes important to make sure that everybody has access and is represented, in those images of the outdoors. Does this picture generate anything for you?
Yeah, it generates memories from like elementary school singing the song. This
Yeah.
land is your land, of California, New York Islands. Was
Yeah.
it from the river forest to the Gulf Stream waters? This land, yeah.
This land was
Um,
made for you
yeah,
and me,
yeah.
and that you and me is everybody, right?
Yeah, and I really, yeah, it really does generate like a lot of things for me, because I really think that that's what a lot of conversations that are being had lately are trying to advance, is these ideals. It's like we have
Hmm.
all these great songs, we have, national anthem, we have Declaration of Independence, we have all the Constitution, all these things.
Hmm.
So how can we fully realize them and make sure that they apply to every like single citizen?
But I think that we have to see, these concepts like "E pluribus unum," or our national motto, "out of many one." That this is not just a lofty ideal; that this is really a vision and a goal and an objective that we have to actually work towards to, bring it to fruition.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I can bring up another image for you here that I think just represents diversity. This is one of my favorite sort of American paintings. This is a Norman Rockwell painting. Have you seen this before?
Hmm.
So, this is, he takes the golden rule and says, "Do unto others as you have them do unto you," and gives us this representation. And, I think one thing that is just so wonderful about our American nation is, the diversity of people, in terms of all the, of course, this is sort of a global scene that he's presenting us, but all these faces are represented in our American nation in one way or another. And so rather than, if you're thinking about like flowers in a garden, rather than walking up and seeing a garden just of all like red roses are pretty, but if you think about this sort of potpourri and all this great diversity that we have of various people and backgrounds and cultures. I mean, it's really something I think to be celebrated, and at the heart of I think this whole drive for wanting greater diversity is the golden rule, which is found in all major world religions and philosophies, and just kind of a good way to be, in the world.
Yeah. And I guess if you go into the next one, equity, but I think that it's important to note that the diversity, it's not that we want more per se, because we have it,
Right.
but it's just how do we like activate it? And
Right.
how do we make sure that everyone, all these diverse populations, get a chance to live and thrive equitable way?
Right. Well, that's a great transition. Let me ask you, so with regards to equity, so what does the word equity mean to you, and why is it important?
Um, so equity is ensuring that individuals and groups get the resources they need to succeed, based on their own specific circumstances, strengths, and weaknesses. So, I'm trying to think of an example, like, because we're on a cycling show. Traditionally, like mountain biking and even road are activities that are, most predominantly like white activities. And so an equity, point, if we want to get more get more diversity into cycling, is kind of creating like programs
Mm-hmm.
that are like, affinity based programs to, that specifically outreach to those communities to get them involved, or even the mainstream cycling community supporting affinity programs that, folks of color, women, queer folks have created, amplify their work. I thought it was really cool this past summer. I met a group, it was called Biking for Brianna
Hmm.
in Louisville during the protests. And they were like basically like protesting, but promoting like public health and cycling, Black folks, brown folks, white folks, cycling together all across Louisville. And I thought was a really interesting way to couch things, because like protesting, there's like a lot of angst that goes into it, and it takes a lot out on people's bodies. And I talked to the organizer about it, and it was a really kind of cool interview. And she was saying this way, we're feeling good. We're having that blood flowing, we're moving, we're feeling good as we do these things, and we're together. That's kind of example, is like equity is like getting people the resources they need to do what they need to do, and also supporting existing programs that are promoting diversity, diverse people, diverse populations being
Yep.
involved in this.
Yep, for sure.
And in the cycling, if folks from like Kemba or like bluegrass cycling or anyone watching, it's like reaching out to Outdoor Afro, Kentucky, and saying like, hey, we want to do some kind of cycling workshop with y'all. We'd like to work with y'all.
Yeah. Can you see this image?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there's actually multiple versions out here, but I think this is such a great concept because, but basically it's trying to demonstrate the difference of what I think a lot of people come when they think about equal as being like sameness versus equity, and what kind of steps you have to take. And so this image on the left may be equal in terms of the way that it's the same. So we got this image of three kids or three people watching watching a game in the stadium, and there's a fence and somebody's tall enough, all they need is one box and they can see over the fence. And then you see someone who's a little shorter, and that she's having a hard time. And then someone who maybe is disabled and can't even get on the box, kind of thing. And then over on the right, we've got this image of what kind of representing equity, where the first person really doesn't even need a box, to see over the fence. The second person might need two boxes, or maybe one box is enough, where the second person needs two boxes. And then you got to make some, other accommodations, so that everybody can have that experience together.
Like a good example for this equality, equity, so we can put in cycling, is like you have three cyclers and you want them to conquer, different environments. So one could be like a downhill type environment, one could be a road, and one could be gravel. And you give them like a freaking Walmart Huffy bike to do it all. Like, equality is like everyone gets the same bike. Equity is that everyone gets the bike that they need to conquer like the different terrain that they
right.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, I think like advertisement too, like like a lot of folks of color do cycle, but like not in the right way that we think of in the mainstream cycling community. When I lived in Europe as a kid, a lot of people use bicycles for commuting. Like it's a legitimate, transportation deal. Like you see people with commuter bikes, grocery, cargo bikes and stuff. In America, it's more viewed as this like luxury type, vehicle, or, machine. But if you look at it, folks of color, a lot of them use it for transportation. And like,
Sure.
Why aren't we highlighting that, via advertisement, reaching out to those people? It's like, but the images you see are someone that's typically in all their gear, nice expensive gear, all that stuff. And then if you see a commuter, It's usually some kind of like tech bro, like in the advertisements, tech bro, messenger bag, with the laptop in there, with the AirPods on the ears,
Right.
flannel. But it's just thinking about there is a lot of representation. When I was in college, I actually was part of I forget the name of the organization, but I took the cycling instructor course.
Oh, probably through the League of American Cyclists, maybe, or
That's what it was, League of American Cyclists. Yeah, it was really cool. It was like a multi-day course, cones.
hmm
You do like maneuvering, ride on different environments, and I got like the certification. That was so long ago, like 2012. One of the things that the instructors talked about is what they call like shadow bikers, like the folks that people don't typically think of. There is a significant population, and how can we like reach out to those folks? So, anyways, I just noted that.
There's some natural segue here because all these topics are related. But so in terms of inclusion, I mean, these are all sort of hedging. What does the word inclusion mean to you, and why is it important?
Diversity is being invited to the party. So, it's like you get the invite.
hmm
Inclusion is being asked to dance.
Mm.
So, um, so inclusion is an intentional effort. It's an intentional, sustained, and specific effort to make people valued, feel welcomed, heard, and respected. It's about integrating new folks into your community and ensuring that they understand they have the same rights, resources, and responsibilities as everyone.
Mm.
So that kind of like encapsulates what we're just talking about. Is like, you know, we have all these like, cycling clubs. It's like, okay, we see this biker on the street. They might not, with the Huffy or whatever. It's like, hey, we got a little club over here.
hmm
You know, um, come on out. So it's and talking to them about their needs as a cyclist. That's inclusion.
When you mention representation, can you talk a little bit about the concept of representation and why it's important?
Yeah, it's important to see people like you in things. I can speak from a Black perspective of seeing images of growing up of like Mae Jemison, NASA astronaut, knowing about Matthew Perry. He was like a Black polar or Arctic explorer. My parents had these like books that we like read as a kid, and they were all, and we got like a stamp collection too that had like like African American pioneers, because like in the school systems they weren't giving that to us. A lot of that Black history, it was like, okay, slavery happened for a day. Then the Civil War happened the next day,
Mm.
and then we had the Reconstruction era. Oh, and then we had the Civil Rights era, and then we're good. Yay. But there's so like much rich history. Growing up, my parents like really instilled that in me. Seeing those people, it helps inspire you to do these things without trying to be like controversial, because I know some people will, but I think this is. But like a lot of like white kids as they grow up, they have a lot of representation in a lot of different fields. So it's like, okay, like attorney, president, boom, 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 boom. The world is endless. But for folks of color, now we're starting to see like Gen Zs and stuff like that. They've had an Obama and stuff. That's the thing that people will be like, oh, but it's all good. We've had Obamas, we had Clarence Thomas, and all those people, and the Ben Carsons. But like there is so much more boundaries and things to be like broken. We never had a Black Secretary of the Interior, ambassadors of certain countries, so many different barriers to break. And it's like hard because of access and stuff. And so anyways, representation is important because it allows people to, again, see themselves and other people and dream and plot and make goals.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of interested, since you are an African American man who is also an outdoorsman. My limited perception is that there may not have been a lot of representation for you towards this, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there were a couple of key people who who did represent that for you. But so I'm just kind of interested in your own journey towards, embracing the outdoors, and becoming such a champion in it, either because of representation or maybe in spite of some underrepresentation.
The term that I like to use a lot is like there is social determinants.
Hmm.
So there are social determinants that kind of like dictate how your life like goes. And I know it might people might say it sounds like so like mathematical or whatever, but or there is an algorithm, and the algorithm is these social determinants. So it's like your health status, your family status, um, you know, um, residence, education of your parents, so many different things.
Hmm.
So one of the determinants for me was like having, growing up, it was a relatively stable home,
Hmm.
healthcare, like food. I didn't want for much. I also lived on military bases growing up, and so a lot of military kids, across a lot of like racial spectrum.
Hmm. Tend to be a more diverse bunch.
Yeah, and like we have like access to facilities. Like one of the bases we lived on, Fort Monmouth in New Jersey, and I know the the layouts like earned out or like burned in my mind. We lived on the street called Goslin Avenue, and then behind like our houses and were like basketball court, little park. Then there's a little trail system that went through the woods. Then up Goslin Avenue, if you go up like a block, there was the base physical fitness center, which had like a world class pool, treadmills, gym, basketball gym, everything. And then there's a library right there, the base
Hmm.
library. So, and then there's a parade field where you could fly kites. And so, like, and then outside of the base gate was like a bay, and that bay led to like the Atlantic Ocean. So that kind of like ecosystem that I lived in, I had all that stuff around. Like my
Hmm.
dad and I, we would trout crabbing. I remember because I got like a big freaking like crab pinched me and a big freaking bruise. But we had crabbing at the crab with a crab pot off this bridge outside the base and stuff. So like I was immersed in like those different. I had those different opportunities.
Hmm.
That wasn't far from me. Go to the gym, to go swim, to go on the trail, bounce a basketball, go to the park, fly a kite, run, and it was safe.
Hmm.
Like on a military base, because there are troop formations, marching. You don't have to worry about like someone like speeding. On the base, it's like typically like a lot of roads are like, especially around residential, it's around, I think like 10 to 15 miles per hour. So it's a relatively low speed. And then also like speeding on a military base, that's a no go. In fact, my first ticket ever was a noise for noise ticket for playing music loud. I remember it was like Lincoln Park. It was like I was playing Lincoln Park like Meteora, and I had it up loud, and I got pulled over. But anyways, I had a safe environment to do those activities, and so that helped me grow and expand to do like more technical oriented type things. And then my parents like put us in like camps, and then they encouraged us to do different activities, and we lived in Germany, relatively safe environment. Germany is relatively safe. We would go on like low cost like bus tours
Hmm.
around Europe and stuff that was set up at like the base travel office, and to go to see different sites like Eder Oberstein. It's a town in Germany that's known for crystal mining. Uh, so we got to do those different things. And then Fort Detrick in Maryland, it's near the Appalachian Trail. It's near Harper's Ferry, West
Hmm.
Virginia, where Appalachian Trail Conservancy is. You're familiar with that because you were down there. You went on the towpath, right? You biked the
Correct.
towpath.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I would go over there a lot and hike on the AT.
Hmm.
Also, there's a place called Contacted Mountains, and I would go over there and do stuff. And then also Gettysburg was not far away, so I'd go to Gettysburg as well. Dad, was stationed there partly when I was in college, so when I'm home for break. So I had like all these different avenues to do that stuff. I worked at a summer camp in Texas called Pine Cove. I was like a media intern. So my job was to do all these like activities with the kids and like record them, photos and videos. And then each week we like pressed a DVD because it was a 1 week camp. So we pressed a DVD they would take home with them and watch their memories and stuff like that. And so we would have like they did stuff like rock climbing, paddle boarding, kayaking, canoeing, horseback. And so we would have like, contests to really get the best like action shots and stuff because we wanted to get that like photo of the day on the Pine Cove website. And I got it like twice, which was dope. And then I got a chance, on break, from camp to go stand up paddleboard on the Brazos River. So like basically what I'm saying is that there is a trajectory from my youth of having a safe environment to experiment and do different activities, to learn to swim, to run, to explore parks and stuff, and walk around in a because like the base is like military bases are like their own cities.
Mm-hmm.
My parents felt relatively comfortable with us walking around and doing what we need to do, like go into the PX or go in the commissary. I don't think that a lot of parents, in the civilian world, nowadays feel good about that, and so that set, I think a lot of military kids, and I've never said all this stuff, but I think it sets military kids up with some kind of like independence because you can maneuver in a relatively safe environment. And then it allows you to be more confident in yourself. And then, yeah. And so safe confidence, it allowed me to like say, explore and do different activities.
Yeah. And you also, it
And
sounds like
also, like,
you had a community that had some diversity and you had good access, to a number of things. And you also had, it sounds like you had a dad who was,
and
also
mom.
modeling, and your mom who were modeling some of these things and encouraging you, towards these things. So, really nurturing environment. So maybe that environment was enough. Did you ever think about the representation aspect of it?
Yeah, I did think about it. Like, I mean, my parents encouraged it for sure, but I was aware of like, wasn't as like mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote,
Right.
right? So I say like the baseline was like being able to do all those activities in the base.
Mm-hmm.
But when I would go on like the AT, or go to Kentucky Mountains or Gettysburg, I would be like alone. Like, in fact, my parents would be like worried. Um, my parents would be worried about me. Like I got into this kick of, I don't know, I was interested in like rescue diving stuff. So I bought these like rocket fins, the same fins that like the SEALs use, and I would just train swimming, and then I would just go out and swim rivers, like on the river, like so the Potomac River and stuff like that, and like just going off of these like settings like by myself as like a lone Black person.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of that wasn't normal. Like normal. Like if you heard of the Green Book?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So the viewers, Green Book was a book, basically that Black folk used, for a long time to navigate across the country to find like
Identify
where,
sort of safe spaces for Black
yeah,
folks to
safe
stay. Yeah.
spaces, safe restaurants, safe hotel, all that stuff. And so like, a lot of times Black people like move around in groups, and I did. And so I was aware of that, and like I would get looks. I would get stopped by the police. I remember like out in Oklahoma. This is just after I graduated like tech school and everything, and I was visiting like a friend, and I was going to like this lake town there, and I had like this like my little BMW or whatever, and it was like an older one, like a coupe. But I got stopped by the police, and they was like, "Son, where are you going? What are you doing?" Like, I'm going to visit my like friend, and all stuff like that. And they stopped. Like he's like, we just don't, have a lot of people, that are not from around here that come around or whatever. And like, so anyways,
We don't see people with your skin shade coming through here.
you couched it in a way that was like veiled,
Yeah.
but I knew what he was saying too, and I was like, look, got my license registration, pull out that military D. He was like, oh, thank you for your service. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, let me go. But no, I am aware of the lack of representation, and I would say from my parents, they've always encouraged it for sure. Us doing things that are outside the box per se. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another, I was thinking about this. It's like, so like, okay, like hiking, right?
Yeah.
I never thought that like hiking was like a white sport, a white thing. Why? I grew up in a military environment where people like rucked. Like that was
Oh yeah. Yeah.
the baseline of what you do. Like, you know, when like so like Wichita Mountains in Oklahoma, Fort Sill I lived on. I was big into like rucking, humping, not
Hmm.
like the other, but that's what you call them, like, you know, go for, yeah, like a 10-mile hump, 10-mile ruck. And so I was really big into that, like backpack. I had a big giant like backpack. Um and I just never thought of it as a white thing because like in my purview, my image of a hiker was was someone with like tactical gear, you know, military gear,
Yeah.
you know, 10-mile hike, speed, and all stuff like that. So like
And they,
that's
they
what
came in all kinds of shades, right?
yeah, and I saw like, you know,
Yeah.
people like all, yeah,
Yeah. So you did have
um,
representation.
yeah,
So I just wanted to share another image, and this is kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit for me. Uh, but a lot of people, you know, in terms of representation, I present as a middle-aged white guy. The image on the screen, I just want to share this. These are actually me and my siblings when I was about 17 years old. And so a lot of people don't know this about me, but I have two African American siblings, and that has really informed my view of the world, and in terms of thinking about the concept of inclusion. You know, I'm keenly aware when I go and ride various places of Kentucky. I think about it a lot. You know, where I think I'm someplace where I don't know if my siblings would feel comfortable, you know, in this particular environment. You know, it's become somewhat politicized with this whole concept of, you know, white privilege. I'm very keenly aware of my own privilege in terms of being able to go into an environment and not worry about how I'm perceived because of being, you know, having a different skin shade, and so I wanted to share actually a personal story, and Gerry, maybe I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but but I'll say that I consider myself very fortunate. I had the experience one time of going with some African American friends to an African American festival in downtown Detroit. I don't think the average white person has a concept of what it's like to be in an environment where you're the only one, or maybe one of a few people who look different. You know, where you're really the minority. I mean, because I grew up, you know, with black siblings, I never thought openly about uh, the way that racism may impact me or my perceptions of the world. And I remember going into the bathroom and just being in this really tight environment and looking around and realizing I was the only white guy there, and just having this kind of moment of panic and not seeing my friends, and you know, like feeling like oh, you're just kind of singled out on the basis of, man, I'm obviously different, you know, in this environment, and a feeling of fear that evoked, you know, for me. And then the privilege that comes with driving away from that environment and then not feeling that fear anymore because suddenly I'm back among the majority of people.
hmm
And so I think a lot about this this concept of inclusion, it's like I ultimately want to be in an environment where all the members of my family, literally, who are different shades and hues of skin, would feel comfortable. And so
Yeah.
I want, I know you've had the experience many times because I've been in environments where you've been the only African American,
Yeah.
present. Um, to kind of, I guess what I want to get at is, I think in my experience, most Black folks have like a sixth sense around sincerity of intention where white folks are concerned. I want to believe that most of our folks in the cycling community have good hearts, have good intentions, and really want to see a more inclusive environment. But if I'm a person of color and I show up at a group ride or something, I want to kind of talk about those conditions. What's appropriate for someone to make someone feel comfortable to where you're not singling them out, but you're making them feel welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I want to back up for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, I said
A
a
lot of
lot during
people in the
the
community say that, but they don't want to overtly talk about it.
right.
So it's like they're like, I've had these conversations with people behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. Like, no one's blocking anyone from going to the trails. No one's blocking, and they feel that it's bringing, again, I don't know if we were recording, it's bringing like politics and bringing the angst or whatever that's happening out in the streets, and the conversations into a space that's supposed to be for leisure, that's supposed to be for community. They feel it's divisive. And what I'm telling y'all, cycling community, it's not. We have to talk about it. In order to get those diverse spaces and inclusive and equity, we have to talk about it. We have to discuss it, have conversations like this within your clubs, within like Facebook groups. There needs to be these dialogues on the regular. Even think about this, Nathan, as well. A lot of outdoor like social media, a lot of outdoor Facebook groups are not diverse in their leadership and their administration. And
Right.
so like quite often somebody might bring up certain topics and they get shut down. Like I've brought up, diversity conversations in certain groups and it's been deleted or shut down, and the admin will message me like, yeah, we just feel this isn't like a space for this. I'm like, whoa, this is totally related to the thing, but and so yeah, I just want to note that we can't get it. We can't get these things DEI without putting in the work,
Mhm.
you know, and talking about it.
So, I mean, just in your own experience, I mean, if you're comfortable, in doing so, can you talk about what it's like to? I mean, you're obviously a leader, so it's a little different. But
Yeah, but even still, man, I'll talk about it. I have been doing outdoor recreation stuff since I was like a kid, or environmental stuff since I was a kid, science club, IDing snakes, all kinds of stuff, leaf, all this stuff. I've been doing it since I was a kid. You can ask my dad, you can ask my mom. um, Recycle ranger, hiking. Um, I was doing like survival stuff before it was cool. Like I was like in the Wichita Mountains. I was like, I had like my Heckler and Koch knife, and I was like eating cactus. Slice cactus open, super juicy inside, so good. But I was doing like all this stuff, and then one of my first jobs, I worked at a place called Patriot Outfitters. It was like a tactical gear outfitter on the base, and I'm like, I bought so much stuff. I bought like 2 ghillie suits. I actually need to get that ghillie suit back. I sent it to a friend. And I never even used the ghillie suit. I just wanted to have it. And then I worked at this place called Lake Elmer Thomas Recreation Area. It's owned by the Department of the Army. And so I was a recreational aide. And so renting out bicycles, mountain bikes, kayaks, canoes, maintaining equipment. We also had this like old like Korean War like PT boat. I have some pictures of it on my Facebook. My job was to like drive it and rescue people that tipped over their canoes and kayaks.
Hmm.
And so I was like 18 or so. You know, so I'd been doing all this stuff for a while. And then I subsequently, like I told you, worked at camps and all kinds of different things. I'm a leader, Nathan, but some people still don't view me that way
Right.
because of this, because of how I look. When I walk in the room, and because of the way I talk, the way I move, I don't talk like the traditional like outdoors person. And so like I feel like a lot of times I don't get the respect that I have like earned. And I'm not saying like, oh, I want people to bow down to me or anything. It's just like to respect me for like my knowledge.
Mhm.
But a lot of people, simply because of how you look, they don't think that you have that knowledge. Or because I talk about things in a different way, about diversity and inclusion. Or I'm not like super like broy. I'm like, and that's a big part of our community. There's a lot of bro type behavior. Um, I don't know, and so that's one thing is like there's this mentality of like what an outdoor person like looks like, what they talk like,
Mhm.
and I'm very cognizant and aware of it. Even like something I struggle with too, of this like all American thing, this patriot thing, a true patriot, a true American. As a black person, when people talk about true patriots, true Americans, they're not talking about me. They're not talking about my family, and it's something that has hurt me for a while because it's like they tell you when you're growing up as a black kid is like do everything right. I have had some bumps and bruises along the way, but college, joining the Air Force, volunteerism in the community, showing up for people. I'm supposed to be like all American, right? I'm a patriot, right? But because I don't, couch things or do certain things, I don't wear a certain hat. I'm not. I'm not a true American or true patriot. That's people that viewpoint, and I just think that's really important. Is that we need to change what we think of like, coming back to the outdoors is like that perception of what an outdoor person is important. Um, I have experienced like racism, like in the outdoors. People, I think I've told you like on the lake, people like yelling slurs at me and trying to like wake me off my like board or my boat on like Lower River Lake and on the
Mhm.
Ohio River. People are like, see a lone black person out there. And it's like instead of letting that lone black person do this thing, we see him out there having a good freaking time. Oh, we're gonna bother him. We're gonna be stupid and yell some slurs. Oh, we don't think he's like skilled. We're gonna try to see if we can knock him off his board or boat. So they're throwing, and I'm like, let's go. I'm good.
Right.
Well, I'll pop back up. But there's just things of that sort that you have to like contend with and deal with is like people's perception, the potential of violence and threat to your body. I would say for the most part, Nathan, I've not experienced like I've had really, really, really good experiences, but there are experiences that have been a damper and that a
Mhm.
white person would not like receive.
Mhm.
Like I see people when they're like, paddling or whatever, like people are like, hey, but people are like, even like the people that are like have good intentions, it's like they stop. They're like, oh, good to see you out here. Thank you, but cool. Awesome. And I'm like, yeah.
Right.
I'm okay.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I'm,
so maybe a good litmus test would be, how would you behave if this were not a person of color? I mean, I'm trying to think about that inclusion aspect and making people
I
feel.
mean,
Like
inclusion,
think of the
it's
group
just,
setting.
it's
Somebody
just,
shows up. Somebody shows up. They you want you. I mean, in any group environment, I'm interested in people. I'm a social guy. It's like I'm gonna I'm going to engage. If I see new faces or whatever, I'm going to engage those people and talk to those people. And so I'm thinking, you're naturally, you should be reaching out and engaging those people. But maybe if that's not a normal thing that you would do, don't do it just because. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to.
But it's don't
Yeah, right.
tokenize people. But it's like if you're on a powerboat, keep going. A powerboat, just wave and keep going. But you
Right.
don't got to stop and your boat's like screw doop and then like throw a wake and then be like, oh hey, and just wave and acknowledge. And it's just being friendly
Right.
out there and like I think a lot of times people there's this perception if people see an outdoor a black person, a brown person in the outdoors, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So then people I see it all the time. People stop and say, "Oh, hey, where you?" They give this the whole interrogation, like where you from, what you doing, where you going to, do. Like, oh yeah, those boots you're wearing, those are meant more for like long distance trekking. You might want
Yeah.
to check out these like Salawas that and the person's in that backpack. Yeah, it's a little bit too big. That frame, frame backpacks. They're kind of not in vogue anymore. It's
Right.
all about the internal. And they're like, well, these are the boots that I like that I have. I'm getting in, I've been doing this. I like the metal frame, because it keeps, it whatever, the way
Yeah.
it bounces on my back. Or I inherited this from my parents or something.
Right.
And I see this like all the time. And like, when I see this happen, outside of a racial perspective, I see it happen in a gender perspective too.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just a way of like just be welcoming, don't tokenize people, let them keep doing and just be friendly. And then also change your perception of what an outdoor person is. Like an outdoor person for me, and I'm trying to work on some materials about all this stuff. But if you freaking go outside and you have your plant ID book and you in your front yard and your ID and plants, you're an outdoor person. If you go to the park down the street with your kids, you're an outdoor person. If you're freaking, doing like marbles or tiddlywinks or something outside, you're an outdoor person. Um, yeah, so we have to change the mentality from being like this like hardcore, like hard charging jumps and berms and adrenaline seeking. These are the images that we see, across the media representation.
Right.
Imagine, you go on Giant's website and you see like a family of color or a mixed family or whomever like cycling. That'd be dope. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, basically be a good human being. It's that golden rule thing. It's like, be welcoming, don't make assumptions, I mean, there's and try to be inclusive. So I do want to get to highlighting the resources that you've put together. If people go out to explorekentucky.us
Yeah, I want to.
slash DEI dash resources. Talk
Yeah.
a little bit
Uh,
about what you've assembled here.
Scroll back up.
Yeah.
I forget that woman's name. But she was. I took that picture. That's at the Pinnacles in Berea
Oh
on the
yeah, that's my
on
place.
the on the left or my left. Yeah,
Yeah.
from outdoor Afro hike in 2017, and on the right is from the gorge. But yeah, this is DEI resources. And we're probably going to change it to Jedi resources actually, so that URL will change, and I'll do a redirect for everybody.
So tell me
But
why Jedi?
to add justice,
Nice.
and also because algorithms in Star Wars. Hopefully, someone's like researching Star Wars and they come across this page. So I'm hoping SEO, but
Yeah.
no, adding justice. Justice is a really important piece of this. Yeah. So what I've assembled here. Yeah, suggested reading. So like, what does it? Sound of Music say? Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin
Right.
with ABC, do re mi. So yeah, when you are heading down this path of becoming a Jedi, a Jedi, interested in these type of DEI and justice, equity, inclusion, diversity, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, You have to read a good book, Native History, or this is like a pamphlet or a PDF, but Native History of Kentucky. Our name, Kentucky, our rivers, our landforms, they have an indigenous roots. And, the big thing in Kentucky is that you see in history or in like history and culture is like, this was just a hunting ground for Native Americans. They didn't live here. No, they did. And that's just the false narrative. And so this tells like a really cool, like a good story about it and that history. Blacks in Appalachia, another good deal. A lot of when people say Appalachia, not Appalachia, it's like they think of this like white, coal miner type person, but the region is actually very diverse. And so I wanted to include that in there. I guess one of the contemporary holy texts right now, Black Faces, White Spaces, Reimagine Relationship, African Americans, The Great Outdoors, Dr. Carol Finney. She actually used to teach at UK, geography and stuff. She's up north now, but her book and her profile has been raised, and it's one of those texts that it's important. Black Recreation, Historical Perspective, and I have, all right. And y'all, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. Bad out. There you go. So yeah, these are just a bunch of different text and stuff. There's something, case studies, living with complexities, color of law, Richard Rothstein, really important book. Tells about the forgotten history of how our government segregated America. Currency of Connection. It's kind of like I was involved with the creation of the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange, and it's a group that organization that connects rural and urban folk together, which is part of like that divide. So it's like our handbook and stuff. So there's a lot of good text in there. That you can see. Landscapes of Exclusion, Jim Crow in the American South, State Parks and Jim Crow in the American South. It's a really good book because there's a quote in there that leaps out to me. It was at a state park conference in the 50s. And this is like when the state park movement was really becoming like a big thing. And they said, this is all Jim Crow era, right? So like it was segregated and Black people couldn't go to a lot of spaces. So they're like people of the Nordic descent need trails and spaces for their vigor. People of the Negro descent just need barbecue pits and ball fields.
Oh.
That was the mentality. And so like when they were creating facilities, that was their mentality. And so that goes,
blueprint for development, huh?
Yeah, structural and systemic racism. And so that's important to note right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a good book. Yeah, partly, I don't think I need to add this to it, Partly Colored, Asian Americans, the Racial Anomaly in the Segregated South. So there's a lot of good books. African American Encyclopedia, I have that up there on display. I have a lot of books. Yeah, and then scroll down.
Yeah.
Affinity programs. So Affinity programs were kind of created because a lot of, Black folk felt excluded. Black and brown folks and, women, queer folks felt excluded from mainstream spaces. There was this kind of like baseline, heteronormative like environment. And again, when I was talking about representation, also about comfort as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these are some groups that are kind of applicable to like our state. So Black women, kayak, KY. It's a newer group. It's for African American women who love to kayak and much more. They're kind of like hiring me out to do some training, paddle sports education with them. Becoming an Outdoor Woman, sponsored by Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. It's a really successful program. They teach them about like hunting and fishing and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's been going on for a while, and I have a friend that teaches a part of it. LGBTQ social and adventure group. It's a meetup group, and they do a bunch of different like hiking, paddling, biking activities. Outdoor Women of Louisville, kind of a similar deal. Positive, adventurous woman around Louisville and around the state too. Then Outdoor Afro, I was a leader in that. So it's Outdoor Afro is a national nonprofit dedicated to Black leadership in the outdoors. There's chapters in like a lot of in different states around the country. And so the leaders, we go to this training, like my training was in the National Wildlife Center in West Virginia. And you spend like like 3 to 4 days there. Learn to become like an outdoor afro leader. You get a bunch of cool gear, and then you have to do 2 outdoor trips a month for the community.
I think it's great, I want to speak to, you know, some people might look at these groups and think, well, why are you doing this just for these people? I want to point out, I guess, that like in the mountain bike community, there's been a lot of activities and training and things that have been geared towards women and trying to make women feel more comfortable. And to me, this isn't any different. I mean, it's just basically trying to take an underrepresented group, and create an environment that is inclusive and encourages folks to do this. So I just want to say, as a white male cyclist, this is great. I'd like to see a lot more of these types of groups. I also want to mention that there's a chapter of a national group that's present in Louisville called Black Girls Do Bike, which is another one of these affinity groups. So I just want to add to that.
Yeah, they're super important. And I was going to note that earlier, is that like, women specific or women's affinity groups, kind of aren't as controversial. Like they were a little bit, but then people opened up more to it. But like affinity groups were like, brown folks, black folks are, and it's really interesting.
Well,
but
a little bit of double standard.
Yeah. Then these are like, if you scroll down, these are like Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color led nonprofits and small businesses, and they deal with like environmental, outdoor issues and leadership and stuff. So Adelante, they're like they work with Latino, Hispanic youth in Louisville. Black Soil promotes Black agriculture in the state. Blacks in Appalachia. Really cool multimedia like collective. Camp Bespoke, it's the first ever it's a majority Black owned ecotourism development. So they have like teepees and cabins and all kinds of cool stuff to go camp at their place in Williamstown. Hey, there's me. Oh, explore Kentucky. Friends of Cherokee State Park. It was I worked a lot with them. It was Kentucky's first and only Black state park, and it was actually the first Black state park in the South. And it was the only state park for Kentucky's African American population. Through the mid '60s. Important to note about that, y'all, is think about this: you're a Black citizen in Kentucky. Your taxes go to freaking the rest of all the state park system, but you only go to one. And you had to go, and a lot of the Black folk, you had to go all the way to Western Kentucky to go utilize it. But it was really one of the finest state parks in the country. Like people came from all around. It had like boat docks, cabins, musicians, all that stuff.
It was listed in the Green Book, huh?
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was actually talking to Dr. Dawson, who's leader of it. It was outside. It was Marshall County, Sundown County. And so
for those who are not familiar, you want to say what a sundown?
Well, if you're Black, you got to get out after dark. and these towns had signage. It wasn't just like some of it was
not PC signage either.
Yeah, some of it was like psychological, like people you knew, but a lot of these times it said like inwards out after dark.
Right.
Or some
don't,
of these
don't
towns
let the sun set on your head.
Yeah, you're. And then some of these towns also had sirens too. That at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and that everybody knew to get out. And it's kind of like what I think about Johannesburg, South Africa, and then I think what is it, Soweto, which was like like a township outside of Johannesburg. So like Black people were not allowed. This is in South Africa. So like Black people could work in the white homes, and then after dark they had to be out there. Go. So this was kind of like the similar thing. So Kentucky Native American Museum, Laurel County Sun Up Initiative. This is a really cool project. It's in Corbin, Kentucky. So Corbin I think it was 1919, the Corbin race riot. So basically this is after World War I. I think it was white troops come back from the war. Allegedly, black person whistle or black man whistled at a white woman. Something yada yada yada. We know how these stories go.
Mhm.
And they felt like black people felt too comfortable there in town, and Corbin was a big railroad town as well, and there's a lot of black porters. So they basically drove all the black people out of town, got them on the train. Goodbye, you got to go, and it was pretty crazy. And so Corbin has had this legacy of being, for years, even still now, of being that legacy from that race riot of expel. Like, and people don't realize this. People expelled people from communities. It wasn't just like, um, you got to go like in a month or two. It's like you got to go now. And so don't take a bag. You out. If you didn't, sorry you didn't get everything. The heirlooms,
Yeah.
boom. And so, like, a few friends and in the community have started this whole Sun Up initiative, to promote racial justice and stuff, and to reckon with that legacy as a sundown town.
Mhm.
And like, hopefully, my hope is like that people learn more about that, because like it's a really beautiful community, and it's a portal to the Dana Blue National Forest. Like near like a lot of the cool waterfalls and stuff. And so a lot know, speaking to a lot of people, they don't like going out east, east in our state, because they perceive, they perceive and know about these legacies. So then scroll down. These are like programs that are centered on youth: Adventure Crew, Hike It Baby, Echo, Yes Arts, here in Frankfurt, and then thought leaders, people putting in the work, like Ashley Smith. Of course, everyone knows. Well, you should know if you don't know. Bell Hooks, critically acclaimed author, feminist, social activist. Yeah, and then there's our Casey Hill. Casey, mountain biker, nurse, all that good stuff. Yeah, Dr. Nancy Dawson, good friend of mine. She was president of the she's in charge of the Friends of Cherokee. She's an editor of the Frederick Douglass Encyclopedia, farmer historian. She's like a saint to me. She's like how I see myself when I'm older. Like, I'm like done all these things and stuff. I love her to death. So yeah, and then this list makes me sort of sad right here. But cultural sites and places of interest, I want to populate it with more, but there's just not a lot of, that goes back to an equity thing. There's just not a lot of preservation of African American history in Kentucky, and not a lot of preservation around the country, or even, and this is like not just African American, but Native American. It's just interesting. So these are just a few. Camp Nelson,
Mhm.
recruitment training center for black soldiers during the Civil War. Cherokee, talk about Cherokee. Um, Charles Young, first black colonel in the Army. Hotel Metro in Paducah. It was a hotel that was on the Chitlin Circuit. If you don't know about the Chitlin Circuit, it was like a circuit that black musicians followed during like kind of like high jazz era. And the circuit where like black musicians could play and stuff, and there was accommodations, and so Hotel Metropolitan provided that space, a really fine like um, accommodations and stuff. Also, the Gorge. A lot of people don't think this about the Gorge, but there's different culture. The indigenous cultures, like those rock shelters. That's why some of those rock shelters in the Gorge have like barriers and fences, um, as a means to protect archaeological like remains and stuff. So like Adina, Hopewell, um, Cherokee, Eastern Band, the Cherokee, Shawnee and stuff. Yeah.
Gerry, I just want to mention about Camp Nelson. So I'm a Berea College graduate. Berea was actually founded on the basis of interracial education, and a lot of the students who were recruited to the school were soldiers from Camp Nelson. So the founder was an abolitionist minister, went to Camp Nelson, and basically said, if you'll come to Berea and help build the school in exchange for your labor, you'll receive an education. And so that was part of the legacy there. So Camp Nelson jumps
Yeah.
out to me. So yeah, long list of advocates, Wow.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. And then keep scrolling. There's national organizations like Diversify Whitewater, Indigenous Women Hike, Latino Outdoors, Melanin Base Camp. I encourage everyone to go check out Melanin Base Camp. A lot of good resources, a lot of good, frank, open conversation about these topics and stuff like that don't pull any punches. I like pull punches sometimes because I try to make my message palatable to people. And sometimes it's not good. It's not good for my my mental health. It's not good for people to understand the message. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
In that. Yeah.
Well, this is a really awesome list. I know that this list is growing. That you're going to continue to contribute towards it. So I want to invite people to come and check this out. And again, thank you for compiling this.
Look at my guy Martin looking clean.
Yes. So we'll be publishing this on Martin Luther King Day, and this is one of my favorite pictures of all time. I love this image of Dr. King on a bicycle,
looking clean. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just love it. And then I think we just wanted to leave people with a quote. There are, of course, many applicable quotes of Dr. King's, but I think in terms of this discussion, this one certainly is appropriate. And it's that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
Yeah,
and I think
I love that quote.
Well, and in terms of this discussion, I mean, that's sort of at the heart of it, right? I mean, it's like, we want to make sure that we all share this love of the outdoors, whether it be, on a bike or, paddling or hiking or whatever it is. And that's everybody's legacy. I mean, again, back to that sticker, this land is your land, this land is my land. This is the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we all have a share, in that. And I think I just want to challenge people to think about ways to enlarge our circle and to share that with other people.
Yeah.
Gerry, as always, I want to thank you for your time today. Is there anything that I haven't already asked you about that you'd like to share with the Kentucky cycling audience?
No. I mean, I would say is like, don't be cynical. Take this conversation, listen to it, absorb it. Don't immediately jump into it. Like, don't immediately jump into rebut. Don't immediately jump into add something. Just absorb it. Think about it for a while. Come back to it, and then share into the conversation. And really take it in and think about the ways that it can impact or change your lives. So that's what I was going to say. Because like a lot of times with topics like this, everyone feels like they have to jump in immediately. And this is like something that's very sensitive and, it involves like, personal relationships and deep relational work. So we need to do like a lot of introspective, be introspective. So yeah, that's what I want to say to people. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to either turning some pedals with you or doing some paddling. I've become a paddler this year because of your influence. Bought a boat.
Yeah.
So, I thank you again for everything you do in our great state to make an environment that's inclusive, diverse, equitable.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. All right, see you.
My pleasure.
Thanks again to Gerry James from the Explore Kentucky Initiative for being a guest in the Kentucky Cycling Connections series. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to stay tuned for more Zoom interviews in the coming weeks.